Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Bull Oak Disc Golf. Ben here. So it's been about 4 months since I started playing disc golf myself, and I just kind of wanted to go over something that uh, is kind of, I think, a little overhyped, but that's just my opinion. Is discs that are considered easy to use. So, for example, we got a Viking disc Ragnarok in air plastic. And I'll kind of go over these ones in a little bit of variety in just a little bit. I have the Latitude 64 Diamond in their Opto Air plastic. I have the Clash Disc Honey and the MVP uh, Photon, not Proton. Proton's the plastic, Photon is the disc in their Fission plastic, which they have micro bubbles in. Um, so easy to use discs are supposed to be lighter in weight. So that way, someone with a slower arm speed can be able to use them and get a fuller flight out of them. Um, and that is kind of true, but not exactly accurate. So the reason why I say it's kind of true and not exactly accurate is because we kind of focus, and all these discs are mostly higher speeds. Like this Photon is 11 speed, the Honey is 12, the Diamond is an 8, and the Ragnarok's at 11. So because they're lighter in weight, it's supposed to be able to get you a fuller flight out of it. But you have to remember, a fuller flight doesn't necessarily mean more distance. So even though you could be throwing something like an Opto Air Diamond, if you don't have the technique or the arm speed, like you're not going to get the full flight out of it or maximize your distance. So it's a 8 speed, 6 glide, -3 1. So you may be able to hyzer flip this up, and when it comes down, you go out, you measure it, it's still about 200 feet. Okay. While you go out, you take your mids, you take other fairway drivers, and you go out, or take out your putters, throw those, and they go 200 feet. So it's all about technique. And I think that's kind of where we're a little stuck as far as disc golf is concerned, because with disc golf, it should be more about the fade, or not. Ah, it should be more about the spin than it is about the speed. So, what I have found out after playing with some people is that spin creates the best kind of distance and gets you the fullest shape out of a disc. Because me, when I was originally first starting, I had a max distance of roughly 200 feet, and someone who just flicked the disc, didn't really have like any kind of run up, didn't really have a solid grasp of standstills and whatnot. He just, because he created so much gyration by that spin, he was able to get really close to where I was as far as distance was concerned. So it really made me realize that if I'm not creating that spin motion and really snapping it, like it's not, like no matter how fast my arm goes, it's just not going to get there. But let me get back onto these discs. So there's some different thoughts about to whether easy to use discs are like how they're manufactured. The air plastics, like the ones in Ragnarok and Diamond, they actually have injected air bubbles in the rim, and you can kind of see it in, especially in the air plastic ones. So that makes them easier to get lift and go through the whole motions. Um, as far as MVP is concerned, and Axiom is that the fission plastic is kind of like plastic that's expanded on a bubble, and then they create the shape and then put their overmold around it, and they put a special, like they add their overmold and add the heavier weight to the outside, which in turn is supposed to help create a easier to use disc. But they've been kind of working on different iterations of their fission plastic. You can kind of tell the difference between some of their older ones and some of their newer ones, because their older ones, the plastic almost feels like the rim especially feels like a neutron, or not so much a neutron, but an electron plastic. So it really beats in pretty quickly. And then uh, the fission plastic itself doesn't feel too bad. I mean, it's not super gummy, but it's pretty stiff. This line specifically, the 5-time world champion Elaine King, she, well, no, not she, sorry. This thing is extremely beefy, so it's extremely overstable. So even if you go like this one's 163 grams, but it's a negative 1.5, 2.5, so it's a stability of 1. So you would think, like, okay, get it out there and I'll get a little bit of turn and a whole lot of fade. No, this thing just wants to fade right out of your hand. But that's what a lot of people have said, and I kind of concur with them. But if you're able to find this in a later iteration of the fission plastic, like 3.0, which unfortunately they do not define on their discs. I wish they did, just because it'd be easier to know which run you're getting, as opposed to like, oh, well, it says fission. Anyway, I digress. So Clash Disc is kind of unique when it comes to their designs. Essentially, they don't say whether it's an air plastic or not, which is fine. But I think they do kind of incorporate some air bubbles into their rim, just because of the opaquency that you won't be able to see with the camera, but you might be able to, like around the outside of how translucent it is. And so they're touting themselves as an easier to use company. And like this plastic is super, super gummy. So if you like those kind of grippier discs where you can just grab onto it and crank on it, I kind of don't like it myself, but that's just personal preference. Just because if you have a plastic that's too gummy, it's too easy to grip lock. But that's just me. But anywho, so what I recommend, easy to use type discs for new players as a suggestion. My answer is no, because it's easy to get into a mindset of picking up as many lightweight discs or air discs or fission discs that may quickly, that will be way out of your range, And so it's always best to start off with the slower uh, mid ranges, fairway drivers. I would stick to nothing higher than an 8 speed as far as fairway drivers go. Anything in the double digits, especially not. A lot of people always say, "Yeah, stick to the stick to the mid ranges and putters." Well, the only issue I have with sticking to mid ranges and putters is mainly you have a weird sense of grip because the mid ranges are more of control discs, so you get a deeper grip. And while if you're trying to get into faster speed discs, it's a lot thinner. So I would say at least a 7 or 8 speed would be as high as I would go for a new player, just so they can kind of get familiar with those that shallower depth and the faster discs. But hopefully this is helpful, and I hope everyone has a good day.